Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Student Innovation and Research Showcase. Thank you for joining us. Let's give everyone a little bit of time to get in since we're only on the dot right now. I do see people coming in. And to our panelists, thank you for joining us very punctually. It's much appreciated. We do have a very exciting program coming out today. Okay. So while we're waiting for everyone to come in, let me introduce myself. Hi, my name is Maya. For those of you who have never seen me or met me, I run the Leadership and Innovation Lab. So I'm also the Director of Student Innovation. So my main role is to help expand and grow all of your student-run projects and initiatives. I really like what I do. I feel very blessed. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Hey.
Hey. We're waiting for people to come in. So as a panelist, you will be able to turn your audio and video on, but most of the attendees, well, all of the attendees are not going to be able to. So feel free to mute yourself and flip off your video if you like. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing a steady flow of people coming in. I will give it roughly a couple more minutes for everyone to come in, and then we will get started right on schedule. Today, our main focus is going to be talking about student research. So we already have a lot of our panelists here with us. They're going to be sharing their papers, most of which have been published, I believe, in various publications. They'll be able to tell you more about this themselves. But yeah, very exciting schedule today. Welcome to everyone who's coming in. Very glad to have you with us today. If you're attending a webinar for the first time and you're wondering how come you're muted and you can't turn your video on, that's normal. Only panelists have that function, so no panic. It's perfectly normal. Very good. I'm seeing a solid group right now. So to all the panelists who are present, we're seeing a solid group come in. I will be able to screen share slide decks on my end if you require me to. If you'd rather have your own control, please feel free to screen share from your end. You have permission to do so. Okay, I'm just going to wait one more minute and then we will start on the dot. So by way of warm up for everyone, here's my screen. You should be able to see that. That's our program for today. So we're over here. We're right on time. We have Dr. Roger Worthington with us here today. He's one of our very esteemed professors. He's going to be doing some opening remarks for us, quick ones. And then later on in the program for today, he's going to be speaking to us about sustainable development. trends as well as potential as a field of research. This is something that he's very passionate about personally, and it could also potentially help you clarify a potential field of research for you if you are wondering whether or not, well, you should do some student research, or if you've decided and you're not sure which field you'd like to go into. Perhaps some of Dr. Roger Worthington's remarks will help you. We have 4 student papers being presented today. We have Ava, we have Raghav, and Lynn, as well as Charles, who will be speaking to us about their student research, as well as one project being presented today, which is Helen's Math Links, all of which are really, really solid, high quality examples of what is achievable at a high school level. Hopefully this will serve as an inspiration to all of you to show you that, you know, they've done it. It's totally possible. You can do this too. My intention here is not to scare anyone. It's just to demonstrate to you the realm of possibility. And lastly, we're going to have Rachel. I believe Chris is unavailable today. Rachel will be coming in to share with us about our academic mentorship programs. And that will be the end of today's programming. And we will come back again tomorrow for more details about student projects. So without further ado, let's get started. Dr. Worthington, I'm going to hand over the floor to you.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you, everyone. I don't need any slides at this point. I'll be using slides later. Thank you, Maya. And I'll probably, when I do my presentation later, I will probably run the slides from here because it's slightly easier. So are you leaving the program? Yeah, that's better. Fine. Okay, well, welcome, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here and be part of this event. It's an exciting innovation, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for students to be able to share their work in this way. And thank you first to Scholar Launch and to Maya for inviting me to be part of this. So my remarks at the moment are going to be brief, because, as you know, I will be giving a little bit of a presentation myself later on in the session. So it's an interesting time for students, and I would imagine that a lot of you are in the process of making college applications, and that's a tough decision at the best of times, and these are very changeable times. The higher education sector is going through a period of upheaval, really, and reassessment of its priorities. And I think there are 2 big factors that have caused that. One is the pandemic, because obviously everybody's education was interrupted by the pandemic and by closures and by doing lots of distance learning. And universities are rethinking the extent to which they can maybe keep some sort of element of distance learning and along with classroom experience. And then there's the whole question of sustainability, which I will be talking about later. But universities themselves have a problem with sustainability because these institutions have a massive carbon footprint, for example. You know, they have big infrastructure, many buildings which have to be heated, have to be air conditioned, all the accommodation for the students, facilities, big lecture theatres and so forth. So they've got a big physical footprint on the ground. And then, of course, all the travel that goes with it, students flying in and out, faculty and staff going everywhere around the world. And I confess, although I do less of that now, I've been guilty of that. I've done a lot of extensive traveling and lecturing all around the world for a number of years, for a long time. But just one comment I will make at this point is that there's a process whereby universities are ranked, rated, and assessed in relation to each other. And higher education institutions, just like students, are competitive individuals, creatures, institutions. They compete against each other. They compete for prestige. They compete for money, for grants, for student fees. As a student making a difficult decision, you may want to take into consideration things like sustainability, because there is a task force that has been convened through the United Nations, something called the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative. And I'm on this task force, and we're actually looking at the sustainability of individual institutions in relation to their sort of profile. And it should be in time. It may not happen in the next sort of cycle, but certainly in a few years' time, it will be factored into the rankings system. So that a university that has not considered its sustainability footprint, if you like, it will impact on its rankings. So there are powerful incentives for institutions to change. So as students, young scholars, you don't need to be mindful of this, but at the same time, when you're making your selection, it's something you might want to look into. Probably the reason I'm here speaking to you now is because one of my roles is as editor-in-chief of Scholarly Review, which is an in-house journal, which I helped to found a couple of years ago. And I have to say, I'm constantly impressed by the quality of the work that comes through. We're now being quite selective, and probably only about 1 in 5 papers gets through the system and into the journal itself. It's a fully peer-reviewed system, and I have an amazing board of editors who help make these decisions with me. And we publish periodically 2 or 3 issues a year. And please do, if you haven't already, consider submitting your papers. It's something you may want to do. So we're quite proud of this sort of flagship journal, and the quality of the work that we produce is wonderful. And I think that's time for me to hand back to Maya, and I will return later for my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Worthington. I'm so appreciative of everyone being so on time and so respectful of timing. It's wonderful. Thank you very, very much. We will now hand the mic over to Ava. Ava, I believe she's already here with us, who's going to share with us about her paper on the forgotten people. Ava, would you like to do the slides on your end? Would you like me to do it for you?
Hey, thank you, Maya. Could you share the slide, please?
Yes, of course. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay.
All right, perfect. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Eva, and I'm so excited to present my research on the discrimination against Métis women in today's showcase. So my research is focused on analyzing the invisible intersectional discrimination against Métis women born between 1997 and 2012, as well as future possibilities to address this issue. Next slide, please. Okay, so the aim of my research is to provide background information for one of the 3 Indigenous groups recognized in Canada, namely the Métis people. So to provide some context, Indigenous people is a collective name for the culturally distinct ethnic groups whose members are directly descended from the earliest known inhabitants of Canada. And the Canadian Constitution recognizes 3 groups of Indigenous people, namely First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. And out of these 3 groups, Métis people receive the least media coverage, and they receive the most discrimination based on a variety of identity factors, including race, gender, age, health status, etc. So my paper also proposes several solutions to combat discrimination. Next slide, please. The research method I used in my paper is mainly a literature review. So I drew my conclusion from a range of scholarly articles, as well as primary sources such as photographs and paintings to provide background information. I also used graphics and tables as evidence to support my findings. Next slide, please. So my research is mainly based on a literature review, and there was no original research conducted. Next slide, please. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the findings of my research. So to provide some context, Métis people is an ethnic Indigenous group with mixed European and Indigenous ancestry. And the first Métis people in Canada were the offspring of French fur traders and Indigenous women in the 17th century. So today, Métis women are discriminated based on a variety of identity factors, and I'm going to talk about each very briefly. So the first one is based on their race. So Métis people are often excluded from both the Indigenous and the white identity group due to their somewhat ambiguous racial identity. So for example, between 1831 and 1996, many Métis children were forced to attend residential schools. However, some were being turned away from these schools for being quote unquote too white. And then ironically, the same children were turned away from Canadian provincial schools for being quote unquote too Indigenous. So this exclusion from sort of both the identity groups continues today and is manifested in the healthcare system, for example. So today, Métis people receive less than 1% of the federal healthcare funding. And they're also overrepresented in the Canadian justice system. So for example, in custody, Métis are often placed more than 600 miles away from their home in a completely culturally foreign environment, which is not beneficial for their recovery at all. So clearly, Métis people do not receive equal or just social services, and that is due to their racial identity. So Métis people are often labeled as cultural misfits because they have both European and Indigenous ancestry, and they're unable to find acceptance in both the mainstream and Indigenous society. Also, racism has its roots in colonialism. So silencing the voices of Indigenous people and imposing Western values onto them is used as a means to civilize them, used by colonists. And that led to the creation of oppressive and assimilative systems, which continue to marginalize Métis women in Canadian society today. And then next, Métis women are also discriminated based on their gender. So for example, according to Statistics Canada, 39% of Métis women experience family violence at least once in their life. Also, there is a huge pay gap between Métis men and women, and that discrepancy in payment compelled many Métis women to engage in sex trade because their limited access to higher education and employment opportunities precluded alternative work. So the gender discrimination against Métis women is largely rooted in the patriarchal Canadian society. In a patriarchy, women is often associated with domesticity, and because of that association, Métis women have extremely limited access to education and job opportunities. Next, Métis women are also discriminated based on their health status. So for example, due to their engagement in sex trade, a high proportion of Métis women contracted HIV, and the stigma and labeling surrounding HIV created discrimination based on multiple levels. So for example, on the family level, family members of HIV positive Métis women often tried to distance themselves from them and barred them from contact or sharing possessions. And on the community level, the stigma and labeling surrounding HIV caused Métis women to lose social connections and become excluded from the community. And that is often due to a lack of understanding and knowledge on HIV. So because the Métis community generally doesn't have access to too much education, they sometimes do not understand the full picture of the HIV disease, as well as the trajectory of this disease and its means of transmission. And next, Métis people are often discriminated based on their sexual orientation as well. So for example, a national high school survey in Canada found that over 67% of both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal LGBTQ2S+ youth report feeling unsafe at school. And then half the students report hearing homophobic comments in school on a daily basis, even from teachers. Also, LGBTQ2S+ homeless youth are more likely to report sexual exploitation than heterosexual street-involved youth. And support services provided to street-involved youth often follow a heteronormatic model that fail to take into account the realities of two-spirited youth. So what caused the sexual orientation discrimination against Métis people? Well, this could also be traced to the patriarchy culture rooted in Canadian society, which defines male and female as the only two natural genders. So transgender identity or gender fluidity are seen as unnatural, and so are same-sex attractions. And lastly, Métis people often receive lateral violence, meaning that they're discriminated by First Nations, which is another group of Indigenous people in Canada. So that is often due to the mixed ancestry of Métis people. So for example, First Nations are often placed higher on the hierarchy of the authenticity of being Indigenous, while the Métis are placed lower because they have mixed European and Indigenous ancestry. And as a result, Métis people are often seen as outsiders by First Nations. So as said by Professor J. Middleton Watts, when a powerful oppressor has directed oppression against a group for a period of time, members of the oppressed group feel powerless to fight back, and they eventually turn their anger against each other. That is precisely what happened between First Nations and Métis people in Canada. So because Indigenous people in Canada collectively have been oppressed by colonists for centuries, they abuse other indigenous peoples in similar ways that they have been abused, as manifested in the discrimination against Métis people by First Nations. So what are some solutions to address this issue? Well, there's several. So first, the Canadian government should amend the education system to foster historical consciousness. So for example, schools should be held responsible for identifying and confounding prejudices and misinformation against Métis people embedded in course content, administrative decisions, and the mindset of teachers. Also, Métis people could cooperate with First Nations and Inuit, which are the other two recognized Indigenous groups in Canada, and as to constitute a stronger voice in social and political discourses in the Canadian society. So right now, the intergroup conflict between Métis and First Nations is severely undermining the collective power and strength of Indigenous people in Canada. So if they can seek to collaborate with each other, then they would be able to defend their rights more in Canadian society. Also, policymakers need to bring about structural changes to the funding system and allocate more funding and resources to Métis communities. So for example, they could introduce justice education workshops to Métis communities to help Métis people advocate their rights in court. Also, the government could establish HIV education workshops to teach young Métis women about HIV prevention and educate the wider Métis community to reduce the stigma surrounding HIV. Next slide, please. So what are some of the implications of this research? Well, through the investigation of the invisible intersectional discrimination against Métis women, it is sad to conclude that 259 years after colonialism officially ended in Canada, we're still dealing with the dark side of history today. However, hope and possibilities of change remain. So in the 21st century, we have seen a great success of feminist and civil rights movement, as seen the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter movement. And there has also been significant improvements in LGBTQ2+ and disability rights. So English philosopher Francis Bacon famously affirmed that knowledge is power. So in order to build a world where people live without fear and embrace each other regardless of race, gender, or age, we need to be first aware of the discrimination that marginalized communities, such as the Métis people, still face in our society today. And in addition, it is of equal importance to think about the actions that we can take as individuals to bring more visibility to Métis people and to help protect their rights in both the public and private sphere. So in conclusion, the road towards an inclusive, free, and equal world is long, but becoming aware of the oppressions faced by young Métis women is a good beginning. And that is the end of our presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very, very much for that, Eva. I think that was super comprehensive and I learned a lot from it. And it's certainly very, very heartwarming to see the care that you have about other members of your society beyond your direct community. So I thought that this was both very inspiring and very touching. Thank you very much, Eva, for that. Okay. Oh, all right. I'm going to move on here now. I think Raghav is going to be presenting for us next. Raghav, I believe you would like to do your own slides. Is that correct?
No, I would like if you did it for this.
I can, not a problem.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, now we turn to Raghav's paper, which is about something completely different. So we've heard from Eva about the Métis people. I'm sorry, I think I mispronounced it, Métis people. And now Raghav is going to talk to us about something that's much more STEM related. I will hand it over to him to explain better.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raghav Paragu, and today I would like to talk about artificial intelligence for oral squamous cell carcinoma detection. Next slide, please. So OSCC, or what we like to call oral squamous cell carcinoma, involves a significant degree of damage to what we refer to as epithelial cells, which form the protective layering of surfaces such as our skin and indeed the insides of our mouths. These cells have a vital role in our health, and it is their impairment that can lead to the onset of this form of cancer. It is important to note that the prevalence of OSCC in the global cancer statistics is alarming, which underscores the urgency of our understanding, awareness, and measures for early detection and effective treatment strategies. As we delve deeper into our discussion, we will be exploring more about the nature of this disease, its causes, symptoms, and potential preventative measures, so we can better understand its overall impact on global health. Next slide, please. The primary focus of our exploration today is centered around the application of artificial intelligence or AI in detecting oral squamous cell carcinoma. The spotlight in particular is on a branch of AI known as deep learning. Imagine deep learning as a very meticulous student who learns by observing patterns and examples. Over time, the student becomes extremely proficient at identifying patterns, even in complex data such as medical images. This proficiency is what we aim to harness in our fight against OSCC. Let's delve deeper into the heart of this technology that powers this meticulous student we call deep learning. And this is where neural networks come into play. Imagine a neural network as a vast web of internet-connected nodes or neurons that mimics the structure and function of the human brain. Each neuron is like a tiny processor that makes calculations and passes information to the next layer of neurons, similar to how our brain cells pass signals to each other. In the context of our study, these neural networks have a very important job. They take the input, in our case, the images of tissue samples, and process it through multiple layers of these interconnected neurons. Each layer extracts and learns different features from the images. The first layer might recognize simple patterns such as lines, edges, and things like that. And as the information goes deeper, the patterns recognized becomes more complex, allowing the model to identify intricate structure characteristics of OSCC. In our study, we deployed these neural networks utilizing their remarkable pattern recognition ability to analyze the tissue samples. By training the neural network with a large number of these images, we helped it learn to differentiate between healthy and cancerous tissues, honing its proficiency in detecting OSCC. In essence, neural networks stand at the core of our AI model's ability to learn and make sense of complex data, providing us a powerful ally in our battle against cancer. In our study, we've delved deeper into the inner workings of these deep learning models. Our focus has been on exploring the varying impact levels of two key techniques, regularization and dropout layers. These techniques are the fine-tuning knobs of our AI models, helping us to prevent overfitting, where the model performs well in training data but struggles with new unseen data. This exploration brings fresh insight into the field, adding to the body of knowledge in this area. It is akin to a new chapter in an evolving textbook, providing a deeper understanding and perspective. For those interested in further reading, there are similar papers that also explore this exciting frontier. These include a study published on PubMed titled Automatic Detection of Oral Squamous Cell Carcinoma from Histopathological Images of Oral Mucosa using Deep Convolutional Neural Network, and another paper with a similar focus published on DPI. Next slide, please. The focal point of the research that we're going to discuss today is an exciting and potentially transformative one. We're venturing into the realm of harnessing the power of artificial intelligence or AI to combat a serious health concern, OSCC. Our journey of exploration centers around the intriguing question, can we train AI models to become adept at detecting OSCC? And we're not asking our AI to make this detection based on simple data. Instead, we are challenging it to analyze complex images of tissue samples, a task that requires a sophisticated level of understanding and pattern recognition. To put it in simpler terms, imagine you're trying to find a specific pattern in a complex tapestry. This is the challenge we're proposing to our AI models. Our objective is to guide these models in learning to discern the subtle yet crucial differences between healthy tissue and tissues affected by the oral squamous cell carcinoma. This research paper is essentially a chronicle of our journey and exploration of this intriguing possibility. It is an exciting venture that could potentially revolutionize how we approach OSCC detection, and in doing so, significantly enhance our ability to fight cancer. Next slide, please. So I'd now like to share with you a glimpse of the very raw material that powered our AI models, the microscope images used in the study. These images, magnified 400 times their original size, served as a textbook from which our AI model learns. On the screen, you can see two such microscopic images. The image on the left represents a cancer-free or healthy tissue sample, while the image on the right represents a sample of tissue afflicted with the cancer. In our study, we fed our AI models a considerable number of such images, 36,410 cancer-free images to be precise, and a slightly lower number of 35,497 of the oral squamous cell carcinoma images. Think of it as teaching a child to distinguish two types of fruits by showing them thousands of examples of each, which each image the model learns a bit more, fine-tuning its understanding and sharpening its ability to distinguish between healthy and cancerous tissue. The task of distinguishing between these seemingly similar images is not easy, but it is crucial. Through this, we aim to empower our AI model to accurately detect OSCC, ultimately assisting medical professionals in making accurate diagnoses and potentially saving lives. Next slide, please. Initially, the data set we obtained from an online source consisted of just 201 normal oral cavity histopathological or NOCH images and 495 of the cancer images. To make our study robust and our model learning comprehensive, we needed a much larger pool of images, and that's where the magic of data augmentation came into play. Think of data augmentation as a creative artist who can take a handful of pictures and transform them into a diverse gallery of images. Using data augmentation techniques such as random rotations, flips, and other transformations, we were able to significantly enrich our data set. We essentially augmented our initial pool of images of 201 and 495 to a staggering total of around 35,000 images for each. This vast and varied data set allowed our AI model to learn from the multitude of scenarios, enhancing its ability to identify OSCC in a wide range of situations. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of data augmentation and AI, enabling us to make the most of our available resources and contribute against the fight against cancer. Next slide, please. Imagine you're trying to teach a child to understand the concept of a bird. You show them pictures of sparrows, eagles, and parrots, and they start to get the idea of what a bird is. But then they see a picture of a penguin and they get confused. It doesn't look like the other birds. If the child insists that a bird must always have wings or the bird must always be flying, they've overgeneralized the concept, similar to how an overfitting machine learning model might behave. Regularization is a technique where we use to prevent this overfitting, the scenario where a model will so precisely fit to the training data that it fails to regeneralize well to unseen data. In essence, regularization helps us maintain a balance. It prevents our model from becoming an overachiever that performs exceptionally well on training data, but fails miserably when faced with new unseen data. Now let's talk about a specific regularization technique known as dropout. Dropout in machine learning terms is a form of temporary amnesia for our model. During the training process, dropout randomly forgets or drops out a fraction of the neurons in a neural network layer. This step is done to ensure that the model does not rely too heavily on any single neuron, thereby promoting a more robust and generalized model. Think of a dropout as a team building exercise. If one team member takes on all the tasks, the rest of the team may not learn or contribute as effectively. But if the tasks are distributed evenly, the team becomes more resilient and adaptable, just as our model does with the application of dropout. Next slide, please. Let's now delve into the specifics of our experimental setup, and I'll try to break it down in a way that some of us who are not familiar with machine learning can understand. Firstly, our test data set. This is a collection of images that we use to evaluate how well our model performs. Think of it as the final exam for a machine learning model. In our case, the exam included 24 images of NOCH, or normal images, and 50 images of OSCC. When we talk about accuracy, we're referring to how often our model gets the predictions right. And when we're discussing loss, we're looking at how far off our model's predictions are from the actual values. In essence, we want the accuracy to be high and the loss to be low, and this would indicate a successful model. Each model ran for what we call 100 epochs. An epoch is simply one full cycle where the model has seen all the training data once. In our case, the 100 epochs took 17.5 hours on my computer, a testament to the complex nature of the task at hand. We plotted what we call loss and accuracy curves. These are graphs that help us visually understand how our model's performance changes over time. Think of it as a progress report card that we use to track how a student is doing over a school year. Next, we come into the validation data set. This is like a pop quiz for our model during its training. We use 75% of the available images for this purpose. These regular checks will help us understand how a model might perform on the final test, allowing us to make tweaks and improvements along the way. Finally, we use a batch size of 32 for these models. The batch size refers to the number of samples that the model looks at before it makes an update to what it has learned. It is like reading a few pages of a textbook and then updating your understanding before moving on to the next few pages. Next slide, please. I would now like to guide you through some important visuals over the course of that depict the performance of our machine learning models over the course of our training. These visuals are represented in the form of 4 curves: training accuracy, training loss, validation accuracy, and validation loss. To make this easy to understand, imagine these curves as a snapshot of a marathon runner's performance over the course of the race. The goal is not to just finish the race, but to do it in an optimal way. Let's first take a look at the top left graph. This one represents our first model's validation loss in green, which is much like tracking a runner's fatigue over time. We can see that the model goes through the 100 epochs or rounds of learning. The validation loss slowly increases. This is akin to a runner getting progressively more tired as the race goes on. and this is not exactly what we want. Now, if we go to the top right graph, this one tells a different story. Our second model's validation loss gradually decreases as it progresses through the 100 epochs. This is equivalent to our runner pacing itself better, maintaining their energy and getting less fatigued as the race progresses, a far more desirable situation. Now let's drop down to the bottom graph. This represents our third model. Here we can see the validation loss decrease is similar to the second model, but the overall loss is lower than the second model. And this is like a third runner who not only paces themselves during the race, but also finishes with less fatigue than the second runner. However, it is important to note that if the second model, our second runner, were allowed to continue the race for a longer duration, it shows promise that it could eventually surpass the third model in terms of lower loss, as it had the lowest test loss. This is akin to a runner who, given more time, could potentially outperform the others due to their superior racing endurance. Next slide, please. Okay. Let's delve into some numbers that illustrate this. When we employed L2 regularization along with 2 dropout layers set at 0.5, our model achieved an impressive accuracy of 89.19%. To put it in perspective, it's like our model correctly answering nearly 9 out of 10 questions on a test. On the other hand, when we did not use any regularization or dropout techniques, the accuracy dipped down to 81.08%, akin to getting just over 8 out of 10 questions correct. Similarly, when we use L2 regularization with 2 dropout layers set at a higher rate of 0.8, the accuracy was 85.14%. These findings underscore the profound impact of regularization and dropout techniques in improving the accuracy and reliability of AI medical image analysis. They help to address a common problem known as overfitting, where a model performs exceptionally well on training data, but does not do so well on unseen data. This is akin to a student who does well on practice tests, but struggles in the real exam. By enhancing the ability of our model to generalize from training data to new data, these techniques significantly improve cancer detection capabilities, moving us one step closer to leveraging AI's full potential in the fight against cancer. Next slide. As we reach the concluding part of our discussion, I'd like to cast your gaze forward and explore 2 potential avenues for future research that can build upon the foundation we've laid in our study. Firstly, we have the opportunity to delve deeper into the fine-tuning of what we call hyperparameters for regularization and dropout techniques. Hyperparameters in layman's terms are like the adjustable knobs on a machine. By tweaking them, we can significantly impact the machine learning's performance. By optimizing these knobs in the context of our AI models, we can believe that we can further boost accuracy in detecting medical conditions. Our second direction is to look beyond the realm of oral squamous cell carcinoma. We envision applying these AI techniques to detection of other types of cancer, and the potential impact of AI in medical image analysis is truly phenomenal. In conclusion, while we've made promising strides in this study, our journey is far from over. The future holds exciting possibilities for AI in the realm of medical diagnostics, and we're just beginning to tap its full potential. Promise a future where AI significantly contributes to our fight against cancer is indeed a bright one. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, Raghav. That was very, very in-depth, and I think I managed to follow most of it. I hope everyone else too, just because I'm not really a very STEMmy person, but excellent research. Thank you very, very much. And I particularly appreciated all the images and graphs. I think it really helped with the understanding. I'm gonna move on here. Helen, are you with us? Would you like me to run your slide deck for you, Helen?
Hi, thank you. I can present it.
Okay, no worries. All right, go for it.
All right, hello. Thank you so much, Mrs. Gilbert, for this opportunity to take part in this. Hello, everyone. My name is Helen Mao, and I am a junior, an 11th grader at North Allegheny Senior High School, located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I started Mathlings when I was in 9th grade because of my passion for competition math and some other reasons. So our mission is to basically provide an opportunity for younger students to have exposure for competition math, and so that we can promote interest in them. Because we noticed that a lot of parents think that competition math is only for geniuses or really smart kids and isn't for their own kids. But that's really not the case, because competition math builds logical thinking and problem-solving skills that are useful both in and outside of school. So we realized that a lot of students think that school math at an elementary level might be too easy and school math lacks challenge. And schools often don't provide enough resources for competition math if they provide math competitions at all. So we try to fill this niche by helping students find the right level of challenge. We provide math resources, opportunities, and training, mostly through online and in-person classes. And we're founded by a group of individuals who faced similar obstacles. Our headquarters is located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So this is where our main chapter holds its classes, but we also have multiple chapters around the US and some branches around the world. We offer free online and on-site math competitions for elementary and middle school students. We hope to promote math in these young students, but Mathlinks is also a platform for high schoolers and middle schoolers who are passionate about math to get together and work together. We hope to promote problem-solving abilities through these online classes as well. Some of our accomplishments. We are a certified organization for the President's Volunteer Service Award. We received a certificate of achievement from the Youth Entrepreneurship Finance Association for outstanding community-focused program and social impact. And Mathlinks is a founding member of the Global Youth Philanthropy Students Association. We've also had over 1,000 students and have over 120 teachers. So a little bit about me. I'm Helen and I'm the founder and CEO of Mathlinks. I've been passionate about competition math since elementary school. And I noticed a lack of accessible resources for like-minded students and those who are interested in math in our area. So that's why I founded Mathlinks, to fill this niche and inspire kids passionate about math. Some of our challenges, our main challenge was advertising to the students. We tried multiple methods of outreach, including through Peachjar and Google Ads grants. We've also used a bunch of different social media platforms for this, like Facebook and WeChat, and then also posting posters. But we've tried seeking advice from nonprofit professionals as well. And so we've enrolled over 1,000 students. For finding teachers, we recruited through emailing our schools and principals, and teachers. And we've also recruited through math communities like Discord. For our future growth, we have plans to host another session of 6 classes this summer, both online and in person, with over 300 students for this main Pittsburgh chapter. We're hosting 4 online classes with 2 summer camps, basically, at our local elementary schools. We sent out teacher signups, and we're also planning a new curriculum with math counts problems. And we've reached out to school teachers to obtain a building use permit for the in-person classes. We're also going to help our other chapters and branches host their classes, whether that's for the first time or to rehost them again. Yeah, thank you so much for all of your time and attention. This is our website. If any of you are interested in checking that out, or if you want to join us, feel free to go to the website, and then there's a form for joining Mathlinks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. Truly inspiring to know that this is the kind of height and project that is capable at a high school level. And, hopefully I really want everyone to feel inspired by what Mathlinks has achieved, to kind of think that you can do this too. And Helen, I believe that it started in 2021, is that right?
Yeah.
So 2021, I want to say 2 years, it grew to this level. Very good. So
Thank you.
It's doable for all of you, with a little bit of help, a little bit of boost. I'm here to help all of you do this, although Helen very impressively, I think, did it all on her own. So you get full credit there for that, Helen. And thank you very much for sharing your journey with us. I think that you and I will probably be speaking more about Mathlinks in the future weeks to come. But thank you for being here today. I'm going to move on to our next paper now. So Lynn is here with us to talk about gender disparities in the gaming industry. Very exciting topic. Lynn, would you like to run your own slideshow? Would you like me to do it for you?
I would appreciate it if you could run for me.
Not a problem. All right, I'm just gonna open it up right now. Can everyone see this?
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Phạm Khánh Linh. I'm from Vietnam, and it's my great honor to become a speaker at our showcase today. And I'm more than willing to share about my research paper. Well, I'm always inspired by the story of Whitney Wolfe, who was forced to leave her company because she was a victim of sexual harassment. However, 2 years later, at the age of 25, she rose again and founded Bumble, a company valued at $14 billion. So I strongly believe that sexual harassment could never be a barrier, preventing women from making a mark, even in male-dominated industries. So to narrow the scope of such a big issue, I aim to let my research paper examine sexual harassment in the gaming industry and investigate whether gender-based discrimination is a predictor to high turnover rates of female in Ubisoft and Activision Blizzard, two gaming giants. Next slide, please. So to this end, I extracted data from job-seeking websites Glassdoor.com and Inhersite.com. Then I analyzed those information using Encapture for NVivo. Next slide, please. The first part of my research paper is literature review. So the video game industry is normally perceived as a gendered pursuit. In 1972, gaming started as a genderless industry. However, from 1975, the industry experienced a massive recession, and financial pressures forced video games to take a different approach. So in late 1985, Nintendo sold its Nintendo Entertainment System and marketed exclusively to boys. Following its success, many gaming companies marketed heavily towards boys, making it to be thought of as an activity exclusively for men. With significant growth, the video game industry is considered as an industry of ample opportunities. As a result, there is a surge in the number of females walking into the video game industry. It's pointed out that women accounted for 45% of gamers in the United States in 2021, up from 41% during the previous year. Although the industry has attracted new categories of game developers, including women, gaming continues to be perceived as an activity for males. Research reveals that several video games tend to use disrespectful representations of female gender. Also, women are less encouraged to play games as video games are associated with stereotypical male characteristics. Also, a study in 2016 concluded that female game developers in Sweden are understood as knowledgeable about female games preferences, but possess no general skills attractive to the video game companies. So as you can see across these studies, there's consistent evidence that the video game industry is still biased towards men, despite the fact that there are more women entering this industry. And the last part, sexism in the form of sexual harassment, is not just emerging. In 2017, Uber lost a number of senior executives, including a CEO, following allegations regarding a corporate culture that engendered sexual harassment and discrimination. And although inhuman workplace must affect the well-being of female adults and discourage women from entering such industries, there's little research on the levels of dissatisfaction that female game developers experience while working in digital gaming industry in general. No significant relationships between sexual harassment and job satisfaction are found, and that's propelled me to write this research paper. Next slide, please. I would love to tell you a little bit about the background and context of Activision Blizzard and Ubisoft. In 2020, Ubisoft, it's a French video game company headquartered in Montreal with development studios across the world, witnessed its high-ranking employees resign from the company as it was accused of ignoring and covering up sexual harassment, abuse, and other misconduct. It faced claims of abuse in France, Canada, and Singapore. Whereas Activision Blizzard hit 2 consecutive sexual harassment lawsuits in 2021 and 2022. At first, I intended to interview current and former game developers at Ubisoft and Activision Blizzard. Their narratives could reveal over women's experiences working in the game industry and indicate their extent of job satisfaction. However, they were not allowed to freely speak out about their experiences at the former companies due to the non-disparagement contracts they signed before leaving the company. Therefore, I must rely on previously published interviews, public written text about the workplace in the video game industry, and anonymous revelations on Glassdoor.com and in her site platform. First, I use Glassdoor.com, which allows current and former employees to leave anonymous reviews of the company. Users are asked to evaluate the pros and cons of a particular company based on their personal experiences. They could also rate its organizational culture on a 5-point scale. I filtered through more than 3,400 current and former employee review of Ubisoft and Activision Blizzard, respectively. In order to better analyze such qualitative data, I deployed NVivo 11 for Windows, a useful tool to produce thematic analysis. In addition, to effectively capture web pages of employee reviews, I utilize and capture for NVivo. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the Glassdoor.com. You can see the reviews of former employees on 5-point scale. Yeah. Why Glassdoor.com provides great insights into the working environment of Ubisoft and Activision. Employee reviews posted to this platform often center on experiences of both male and female. Due to the anonymous nature of Glassdoor, it's a little bit difficult to have a close look at women's experiences in the gaming industry. Therefore, in order to collect data from women exclusively, I also use inhersite.com. I collected and shifted through more than 200 ratings about Ubisoft and more than 200 ratings about Activision Blizzard posted to inhersite.com. And yeah, again, I utilize and capture extension for NVivo to produce thematic analysis. Next slide, please. And here are the results. The first one is thematic analysis. My thematic analysis reveals that a good number of employee reviews made a direct reference to Ubisoft and Activision Blizzard's sexist culture. Once the longitudinal approach is taken, sexism and sexual harassment in the workplace in the particular evolves over time. It's found that sexual harassment has persisted in Ubisoft since 2015 and persisted in Activision throughout the company's entire history. The next one is descriptive analysis. Next slide, please. Figures suggest that the overall job satisfaction of offices where there was an accusation of sexual harassment, Canada, Singapore, and France, is lower than at offices where there is no accusation of gender-based discrimination, Brazil, Australia, and Scotland. Next slide, please. Also, nearly 50% of all employees who left Activision Blizzard in 2021 were women. This is notable because with the company only employing 20% women, you would expect them to leave at a rate similar to the existing rate of the company, but instead, they're leaving at more than double that rate. Next slide, please. So, despite efforts to improve gender diversity in the workplace, Activision Blizzard has seen a decrease in the proportion of female employees since the 2021 crisis. The research also suggests that rampant sexual harassment in the toxic workplace culture caused female game developers to leave the industry. This paper, however, limitations of publicly available data have restricted the potential to explore further analytic techniques. Next slide, please. Therefore, I would love that future studies should continue to employ analytic software and existing data resources to complement and deepen the study of sexual harassment at the workplace. Scholars can explore further implications of gender disparities and inequalities at the workplace, establishing a strong relationship between sexual harassment and mental health of female employees. Such knowledge is crucial in that business, including gaming companies and those belonging to other industries. This knowledge can help them gain valuable insights into the issue and make informed decisions to bridge the gender gap and to provide women with enhanced access to fields that are normally male dominated. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks, Lynn. I think this is a topic that's very pertinent, but probably not many people choose to approach it, especially at the high school level. So when I came across your research paper, I was really pleasantly surprised, and I thought that it was really courageous for you to attack this topic. Definitely very relevant for us who identify as women. So thank you for that and for a lovely presentation. I'm going to move on to our last paper for today, which is Reactions to Skepticism. I believe, Charles, you're here with us. And I think it's Charles de Bellois. Is that right? Am I saying it right?
Yes.
Yes, very good. So Charles is here with us, presenting a philosophy-related paper that honestly, when I read it, I thought it was of a quality that is rarely seen for high school level student research. Truly, one of my favorite papers that I've read in recent years. Would you like me to run the slideshow for you, Charles? Would you like to do it?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So floor is yours, Charles. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Charles Abella. I'm an 11th grader in San Francisco, and I wrote a paper on reactions to skepticism. So in this case, that would mean skepticism, as in the belief that we have no rational way of knowing anything, and therefore defending any of our values, our societal structures, or anything we claim to know. Next slide. So first of all, the goal of the paper was to compare, I would say, two extreme versions in how they contrast, but two different reactions to the skeptical arguments. So I will not be necessarily going over the arguments for skepticism, which tend to rely on the inconsistency in human knowledge and reasoning, but instead I will be comparing nihilism and pragmatic skepticism that both contrast. So I'll be exploring the societal and individual implications of the fulfillment of both views, and I'll contrast the potential dangers of any radical change being made with regards to very rational knowledge, and of course analyze the potential shortcomings of any of these skeptical views and how we act upon them. Next slide, please.
Sorry, Charles. Hi. I'm getting some feedback that it's echoing a bit. The sound quality isn't that great, and it might make it difficult to hear you. Is that something that you're able to fix on your end?
I can try.
If possible, would it work if you just spoke without the headsets? Perhaps that's what's causing it.
Yes, I can try. I think the room is echoey, so.
Yep, no worries.
Does this sound better?
It sounds better to me. It sounds better to me. A little bit less echoing. Yeah, I got some feedback in the chat that it is echoing a bit, and I thought so too. I think it sounds better. Try saying something.
How is this?
Yeah, I think it sounds better to me. Let's keep it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Sorry about that. Oh, and next slide. So, first of all, I will introduce two different philosophical perspectives. So the first is active nihilism. This was mainly proposed by French philosopher Gilles Deleuze in the 20th century, and it is an extreme case, extreme not necessarily as rational, but rather as the amount of action needed to be taken by an individual following this train of thought. And it calls for the destruction of our current basic society and everything that's part of it to then rebuild another world. The idea being that we are completely limited by a basic society, that as humans who have a drive for freedom and for knowledge, we should act only on what we know and therefore not live in a society that is baseless. And then on the other hand, you have the pragmatic skeptic who does only what is practical with skepticism, therefore separate completely the acknowledgement of skepticism or the rational belief from actions in society, which the pragmatic skeptic considers to be irrational and sometimes even. Next slide, please. So for nihilism, the main approach of nihilism is creating a society that isn't based on any false or unprovable claims. So that essentially means that anything that we can't perfectly justify, we have no reason to follow and instead restrict us. And because to the nihilist, the only real value is freedom. And the reason for this is that freedom is directly reliant on your own personal experience as opposed to your experience with relation to others. So any other values need you to act with respect to others, but not freedom. And that's why any limit to our freedom by some other value is baseless. So another famous philosopher that worked on nihilism, Bettimo, says there are no ultimate foundations before which our freedom should start. So to do so, that means we would have to completely destroy our society. So this doesn't mean some sort of bloody revolution. Of course, this could mean any sort of restructuring of our current society. The idea being that any part of society that is not directly philosophically provable would then end up being seen as inherently useless to our newer society. And so this is called negative affirmation, which is to not take responsibility for, to take on the burden of what is, but to release, to set free what lives. So the idea here being that any sort of great society would be good, inherently good to make the switch, even though it seems destructive. There is an affirmation to it. You are not just destroying what is broken, you are creating something. Next slide, please. So then as far as a criticism of nihilism, I think the main issue I have seen with it is it cannot completely emancipate us, and it assures destruction while only hoping for creation. Essentially, what this means is that the nihilist view, while it may be way more appealing in that it is trying to stay only grounded in rationality and try to create a better life, the only thing we can be certain of is that when we destroy our old society, the old society will be completely destroyed, while we must just hope that the creation of the new society is somehow better. And the issue with this is that there is no way to have some sort of pragmatic lifestyle to interact with society while sometimes ignoring some rational thought. So in this case, nihilism would be impossible because our identity is stuck in the world it wants to destroy. Any impulses, according to nihilism, that we don't consider to be a part of our identity inherently limit our freedom. So a very extreme case of that would be if you're hungry and you eat, you wouldn't call your own hunger something part of you. You would call it something affecting you, and therefore you would have to not eat because if you wanted to be perfectly free. But a more reasonable version of that would be when you interact in society and you interact irrationally, you want to get rid of that because that is a limiting factor in your pursuit of a better life. And then finally, the main issue is that perfect freedom for several people is impossible. From the moment that one person has the ability to do anything, they have the ability to impede the freedom of others. Therefore, any society which requires having several people that exist cannot assure the freedom of all these people, because the only reason that the nihilist really likes freedom is that the freedom is inherently individual, and that it is proposing to create a society that is not individual. Next slide, please. So then for pragmatic skepticism, it is a skeptic point of view. So it rationally completely accepts any argument that proposes that we cannot know anything. But it is trying to avoid any potential painful consequences of acting on skepticism. So the main fear of the pragmatic skeptic is that there will be pain in any change made with our new knowledge. So the idea being that there is a complete dissociation of what you think rationally, and then how you feel. And anytime you feel, that is what's positive or negative. Rational thought has no positivity or negativity in your life. Therefore, you need that complete dissociation. This essentially means that the pragmatic skeptic believes, or rather is satisfied enough with our current world, that he does not believe, or does not believe that there could be a better way of improving society. So it's less that he is completely satisfied with the world as it is, but rather that any risk seems to him to be too much of a risk. And therefore, he would rather have slow and steady advancement of society, as we have seen through history, rather than abrupt change. Next slide, please. So the main critique of pragmatic skepticism, and the reason pragmatic skepticism isn't seen as a positive act of skepticism, is because it is compliant. Essentially, what the pragmatic skeptic is saying is that he will not do anything even with the new knowledge. That is, the pragmatic skeptic is inactive. So essentially, the reason this could be defensible is it allows more compliance. Being a negative reaction to skepticism does not change anything, does not destroy, but does not create. And the reason for this is that rationality isn't the best basis for living. If we live purely rationally, that would not necessarily mean that we would have a satisfied or good life. Because we take pleasure in parts of society. For example, when you follow a value that you have intrinsically, while the nihilist would tell you that value is limiting your actions, because it is, and you have no real rational reason to believe it. And yet we still take inherent pleasure in following our own inherent values that we find to be correct, even though we're just perceiving to be doing the right thing. And then we also get pain from any change or removal of our current life. So even if there was a better society, should we destroy our own, the pain we would receive from having a complete change in our lifestyle would be such that most people would not find it worth it, and there would be, and the people that would have to make the change would then would only be able to comfort themselves, if you will, with pure rational thought, which does not tend to work. And so therefore, I would say that compliance allows the most improvement between the two. Next slide, please. So I guess to conclude is that nihilism only considers the part of skepticism that it supports. So ignores the part that's contradicted. The complete upheaval of the nihilist in terms of values means that it cannot critique any other system, because to do so, it would have to call it either good or bad. And in doing that, it would be basing itself off irrational values. It is so destructive initially that it cannot formulate its own argument. And I do believe that pragmatic skepticism can lead to good outcomes. I think that as we have advanced in philosophy and science, we have had more reason to believe that we cannot actually know anything certainly. We have, now that we know more about the brain and we have more arguments for skepticism, we do have a large conflict between our morals and our rational thought. And I still believe that anyone with a satisfied life needs to have some irrational thought, because rational thought, once again, does not connected to any emotion. And so to truly be a skeptic, one must not only live according to the rational conclusions, which is a very sad conclusion as far as philosophy is concerned, because personally, I feel like what is the point in the end if not to live rationally? But I do think there's a certain beauty to life in that we don't necessarily purely have to act rationally, because it can be destructive. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Charles. I don't think there are many high school students who choose to attack philosophy. So firstly, very courageous choice. And I really, really liked your paper. It's a little bit unfortunate that the sound quality wasn't that great, but I'm sure that Charles would be happy to share his paper with whoever here wants to read it if you're interested. Probably you can ask me for it. Yep, if you're interested. So thank you for that, Charles. I'm going to move on back to Dr. Worthington, who's going to share with us about SDGs, I believe, Sustainable Development, Trends and Potential as a field of research. He's going to be able to talk about this much better than me. So go for it, Dr. Worthington.
Sure. I'll just share my screen and I'll make a start. And I'll see if I can make up a little bit of time because we're slightly behind. For some reason it muted me. Can you hear me now? No, is that all right? Okay, we're in business. Okay, slight hiccup there. Okay, well, here, this is what I'm going to talk about. And I will press ahead. Just so you know a little bit about me, do a number of things. Now, I used to have a number of university appointments, but I now work as a consultant in ethics, global health, and sustainability. And in that capacity, I now co-chair a group that is responsible to, that accounts to the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, which is this UN body. So I'm very actively involved in promoting sustainability through working closely with publishers on a global scale. I mentioned earlier, I'm also editor-in-chief of the journal Scholarly Review. I speak regularly at United Nations forums and events, some of which are sponsored by the World Health Organization and other institutions. I also provide continuing medical education to doctors in the British health system. I'm based in the UK. And I was previously, one of my roles was as an adjunct in the School of Medicine at Yale. So that's enough about me. So in terms of what I want to cover, this is just a very brief outline, a few current projects on sustainable development. Oops, my mouse is not being very responsive. There you go. We're going to focus a little bit on the third of the goals, which is the one that deals with health and well-being. And also want to talk directly to the students really about what they can do, what you as individuals can do to help promote sustainability within your environment as a student. These goals were set in 2015, and the intention was for the world to try and achieve a series of quite specific targets by the year 2030. Now that means that we're basically halfway there, but alas, the progress along the way in terms of achieving these goals under these 17 headings is very mixed. In some areas we're making good progress, in some we're slipping back because of things like the pandemic, conflicts in the world, and other negative factors. So I'm not going to attempt to cover all 17, but what I will say at this point is that sustainability is not something that we can choose to ignore. It is not an optional extra. Everybody has to start thinking about it. The world is on fire in a way, and you don't just have to be a firefighter to be able to deal with it. Everybody has a responsibility here. And particularly the young members of this audience, it will dramatically impact on your lives if it hasn't done already. So this is the group that I belong to, and I'm just going to pause and run a very short video. It's only exactly 2 minutes, and I hope it's going to work. If you can give me the thumbs up when it's running and tell me if you can hear it. There should be some music in the background. Can you hear that?
I can hear it.
The SDG publishes compact fellows.
Is that right?
Sorry, Roger, I can hear it, but I think we can't see the image because you've shared a tab.
Sustainability mission to amplify.
I'm trying to. Okay, let's just see if there's another way of.
Let me see if I can help you there.
I know there's a. Let me go back into my Zoom settings because there should be a way of. Well, actually, I don't have to run the video because we're running a little bit behind on time, so I'll skip that. But if anybody wants to find out a little bit more about this group, we've got our own website, and there's the link there. So it's just sdgcompactfellows.org. And the video is available there. In fact, there's a 2-minute and a 4-minute video that explains the work that we do. And so we work with publishing industry, but it's not just about publishing. We're really concerned with the research community. We're talking directly with authors, with researchers, as well as publishers, also dealing with universities directly, and some global institutions to try and promote the sustainable agenda across all the domains. So in terms of the group itself, we are a group of about 20, I think we're about 22 members at the moment, active members. We meet every week, sometimes more than once a week because there are a number of working groups. And these are some of the things that we're working on. The first bullet point I referred to earlier, and this is about reforms within higher education. Which I won't go into any more detail, but if anybody's interested, then you can just search for HESI, Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, and you can read all about it. We have already produced guidance for researchers, authors, publishers, and practitioners. Practitioners meaning somebody, whether they're practicing medicine or engineering or architecture or computer science or whatever it is they're doing. Everybody needs to think about sustainability within the context of what they're doing. We're not just talking about carbon footprint here. That is an important part of it, but is certainly not the whole story. And the next bullet point is perhaps the most relevant in a way, because the one thing that underlines the 17 goals is the principle of equity. And we've just had a talk about philosophy, and our first speaker was talking about equity and discrimination within minority populations. And equity actually underpins all 17 of these development goals, whether it's talking about gender balance or avoiding discrimination against researchers in low and middle income countries, particularly in what is often referred to as the global south. There's a very strong underrepresentation in the published literature from researchers from countries in the Southern Hemisphere. And there are big efforts to try and correct that imbalance. That's one example of inequity. And publishers have a responsibility there to try and promote equitable policies. The fellows speak regularly at events, and I find myself increasingly speaking on sustainability, although my specialty area has been medical ethics for a number of years. And we collaborate with a number of other institutions with the aim, among other things, of promoting open science, because we believe that the scientific knowledge should be accessible and openly shared, and not restricted. And you need to work directly with the publishing community in order to try and tackle this business of open access. I'm sure some of you as students on this call have hit paywall barriers where you try to download an article and the publishers are trying to squeeze $30 or $40 from you before you can read that one paper. So that's not a very good way of sharing knowledge. But publishers are commercial entities. They have to find a way to make a business and cover their costs. So there are no simple solutions, but as a group, we are actively working on it. So I said I was going to focus a little bit on the third sustainability goal. This is not a video, it's just a link takes you straight to the UN website. So this is the goal for SDG 3, ensuring healthy lives, promote well-being at all ages. So it's very broad. So if a student is interested in doing research in SDGs, you can't just sort of think, oh, let's start researching SDGs. Even this is just one of the 17 goals, it's pretty broad. So if you drill down and then start looking at individual targets, these are much more specific. So we've got one here, for instance, on maternal mortality, preventable deaths, neonates, young children, and so forth, controlling diseases such as AIDS, TB, malaria, and so forth. So a number of very specific targets. So these are some of the things that a sustainable healthcare should include. And I've started giving talks to universities, to medical students about some of these things. And I'm also, got a writing project intending to work on this quite on a fairly serious scale. So one of the problems is lack of equity, as I mentioned earlier, and in healthcare, that's a really, really big obstacle. I've lived and worked in the United States, the United States is one of the least equitable healthcare systems in the world, particularly when you relate that to the fact that it spends more on healthcare than any other country by far. There's no other country even close to the global spend on healthcare, but it's mainly really because it's run as an industry rather than as a public service. And the World Health Organization and the UN as a whole have said that that sustainable healthcare will never be achieved unless there's universal health coverage. So that's one of the goals. Another one is having strong systems for public health. Now, we've all just come through 3 years of pandemic restrictions, And sadly, some governments around the world have been cutting budgets for public health and undermining public health science for political ends, which was not helpful. And the World Health Organization is still trying to recover from some of those negative influences. And the Center for the CDC is the US version that is responsible for public health policy and implementation across the states, and it's got offices around the world as well. Another example is clinical and pharmacological waste. Now, there are two separate things there, but I bracket them together. If medical tests, for instance, are done without proper justification, in other words, if there's no real reason for doing it other than just to rule things out, that could be considered a form of waste, and certainly under the US system, where there are powerful commercial incentives for doing a lot of investigations. That is one form of waste. Pharmacological waste, a lot of drugs go down the sink. They're not actually consumed, and the industry, there's waste within the industry, and there's a big push to try and address that. So it's not just about carbon. That's why I put carbon emissions at the bottom, not because it doesn't matter, but because it's not the only thing that sustainability is about. So these are a few of the things that we're working on at the moment within this group. Individual projects, it's very difficult to take one of these SDGs and not take in some of the others. In other words, most research around sustainability covers more than one goal. And so here's an example. Now, my own research group is focusing on migration, climate migration and health. So populations that are being forced to move because of climate change and the impact that has on health. And these three topics are normally treated individually, but we're working on them together because it has public policy implications. And so that topic, this is one piece of research that we're working on, addresses SDG 3, 4, 5, 6, and 13. And then you see in the brackets there, it tells you what each of those goals covers, so that you see that for yourself. We're starting to communicate our findings. We just presented at the World Congress on Public Health, which was in Rome last week, and ran a workshop there, which attracted a lot of interest. And we had case examples where climate change is causing, either already causing or is potentially going to cause climate change, focusing on these countries from around the world, so Nepal, Somalia, Guatemala, and Spain. And we framed this within the context of international law, human rights, climate migration and health, and how these things intersect. And we're working on this to write up. And this was one of the slides from that presentation. And if you try and imagine, you can see these sort of layers, these strands. This is a reservoir in southern Spain. And I think it's about 12 meters. The water level is about 12 meters. So what is that? 36, 38, nearly 40 feet lower than it should be. So in other words, it's about, I think it's about 15 to 20% of capacity. And Spain and southern Europe has had well below average rainfall now for years, and it's going to cause, already it's causing serious problems for farmers, and it's going to cause even more restrictions if that situation does not improve. So that's just a visual example of one of the issues. So what about individual responsibilities? What can you do as a student? Well, one thing I'm sure you're good at is asking questions. Ask your teachers about it. Question things. Ask your family about it. Discuss it with your friends. Consider doing projects on this yourself. There are lots of opportunities here. And one of the things that I do is through Scholar Launch is run courses on this, which the one for the summer is fully subscribed, but I'll be offering it again in the fall if anybody's interested. But as an individual, each of you can set yourself a goal. Be specific. What can you do? Well, how can you change your behavior to be more responsible in terms of overconsumption to try and promote sustainability? And what you do can influence those around you. Or you might, particularly when you go to college, you might want to start a group. I mean, we heard a wonderful example today of a student who has started her own group as a high schooler. So it is possible, and then you can sort of you can start to bring about change within your area or institution. So this is one option you might want to consider, is doing a project. Also, through Scholar Launch, I've helped set up a scholarship for this, and we've just completed the process of selecting candidates, and we had 3 prize winners. And the first prize winner was announced last week, and her name is Swara Joshi, and she's literally starting work with me tomorrow on a research project. And she's a wonderfully talented student, and we've got high expectations of her work output. And if any of you might be interested in this, the next round of applications will begin in January next year. So it'll be an annual event. This is a screenshot which I took last week when I was meeting with Swara, and she gave her consent to that. And this is a slide which I borrowed from one of our presentations, the SDG group. So well done for what you've already done. Some of you are already thinking about this stuff. I know that. But congratulations to what you will do next. Please think about this stuff and build it into some of the decisions that you make, because we all need to do our bit to change the world. And I think that's the time when I should stop. So thank you, Maya, back to you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Worthington. I'm really sorry that we had to rush you a little bit through your presentation, but I think that the key elements were very well there. I got the message, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have one last item for today, which I don't think will take long at all. Rachel is here with us for that. Thank you, everyone who's still here with us. I will hand over the floor to Rachel.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone here today. It's so exciting to be here and present about Scholar Launch. So let's get started. Hello, everyone. As I said, I'm presenting about research. You might be researching sometime soon, but I'm presenting about research programs with Scholar Launch. And we have a variety of research programs. Some of you might be familiar with them or involved in them. Professor Worthington sure is involved in them. He was just speaking about some of them just before. So this is really a great next presentation to explain how you might actually practically get involved with some other kinds of research as well. So here we are. So this is me. Hello. I received my BA from Barnard in architecture specifically. I also received a BA from Jewish Theological Seminary, and now I help manage the research program with Scholar Launch. Particularly, I help with the TAs, the teaching assistants quite a bit, but I help with really anything that needs help. So today, we will be talking about what it is like to be an academic researcher with Scholar Launch. And how you might thrive as an academic researcher with Scholar Launch in high school. How can students make the most of this research practicum? How, once you're in it, what can you do to really get your money's worth, get your time's worth, get your investment, and really do something impactful? And as a result, what can you do once you've completed the research? What are some of the next steps? What are the things that you can utilize and move forward with once you've completed that? And also just practically, what are the kinds of programs that we have that you can join, and how can you get started with that? And you can see our email at the bottom here in case you want to contact us at any time. So the first step would be to choose your path, and it really depends on your grade level and your interest and time commitment abilities. So we have 4 main programs. The first one is the Research Interest Exploration Program, which is for all grades. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that means. But this is particularly helpful if you're not exactly sure what kinds of things you might be interested in, but you know you want to get started with research, so you can explore a bunch of different options. The Junior Research Practicum is more of our typical research programs, and it's for students who are in grades 7 through 9. And then we have the senior research practicum, which is more appropriate for the older high school students, for example. We have those for grades 9 through 12. Both of those, the junior and senior research practicums, are available for group participation or one-on-one participation. We also have the accelerated research practicum, which is simply a faster version of the regular research practicums, depending on your time constraints and ability to really commit to that in a short period of time. So the Research Interest Exploration Program, which I mentioned very briefly, reviews all of these subjects that are covered here, from applied math to clinical psychology, religious studies, other aspects of the humanities and the sciences. And it consists of a hybrid program between recorded lectures and live in-person lectures with instructors and faculty. And this way you really get a broad range of exposure to a variety of things, because everything could be interesting, but what interests the most? And this way you get to gain exposure to a lot of different things over the program. You learn a little bit more about research proposals, writing process, and then eventually any sort of revisions and publications that would occur. The cohorts are small, so you don't have to worry about feeling overwhelmed with that. There's 3 to 5 students per cohort, or you can do it in one-on-one format. And these are starting often. They start monthly rather, and they last for 2 months. So you can start whenever you feel ready for that. And the time commitment is about 3 hours per week, which includes the breakdown of the homework time and the class time. We suggest this for students who are in 11th grade or below, and that you can read and write English fluently. And of course, that you're interested in learning more about different subjects. The group-based research practicum is probably our most popular program. And this is, once you have an academic interest that's a little bit clearer and more defined, you can do some research and turn that passion into some outcomes. So this breaks down how you might figure out which program is appropriate for you based on your age. And how long they last. So again, the difference between the accelerated and the senior is simply the amount of weeks that it takes to complete it. And then the junior versus senior is the age in which you must be to commence the program. They all have, well, the accelerated is generally recorded sessions, and then you have an additional live session just to move things along quicker so you can go at your own pace. Whereas the senior and the junior are, for the most part, live sessions. The senior program, you'll also see that you have live sessions one-on-one with a teaching assistant. Even if you are in a group, you still get some one-on-one attention for your project. In all cases, or in most cases, you'll have some sort of academic paper or results in which you might be able to publish, as well as if you're impressive and working well with your professor, you might be able to get a letter of recommendation from them in the case of the senior and accelerated programs. There we go. Well, here are some of our faculty advisors. You might recognize this person. Maybe sometime soon you'll recognize more of these people, and they're very esteemed in their fields across various universities and topics. So we hope that you'd enjoy working with one of these people. How to make the most of your research experience? Well, once you're learning the subject knowledge, our goal is to help you identify the questions and problems that you want to solve, particularly what are really specific that you'd like to help with. Get experience working with those sources. What are other people saying about those questions and problems? And then learn research methods that are really solid and will help you create a really narrow, which is good, specific and realistic research project to make an impact in that field. So here's a case study of student D, who was at a public high school in the United States. They were in grade 11, and they wanted to research cloud-based machine and deep learning. And their topic, they narrowed it even further, was on cloud-based stock market simulation and trading bot deployment. So they were able to take a general idea that they had of something they wanted to do to figure out how they could make it even more narrow, to test something, to look at something specific. Their faculty advisor was a clinical associate professor at NYU, and their teaching assistant was a computer scientist from Columbia. And what did they do? Well, they got admitted to MIT. And the admissions committee wrote in their offer that they stood out in one of the most competitive applicant pools in the history of the institute, which is what an accolade there. They finished an outstanding research paper and published their paper in the National High School Journal of Science, which shows you just the quality of the research he was able to do as well, and how much he was able to learn. Then he was able to also participate in 2 competitions with this research, and the professor was able to write letters of recommendation for him, which helped, of course, in his admissions. So this kind of tells you a little bit too about what you can do after you finish your research. You can learn a lot in your program, make an impact in the field, work with other professionals in that field and academics in that field. But you have the potential to do some stuff with that work. You can submit it to journals and websites. You can present your work at a conference. You can include your work, of course, on future college and research applications. You can develop your project into a long-term research agenda, which some of our students do. You can start something like this in high school and pick it back up when you're in college and have even more resources at your fingertips. And of course, just adding your experience to your resume for future research and professional opportunities. What a great thing that you can already have this done by the time you enter higher education and can say, well, yes, I do have experience creating a cloud-based platform and it's award-winning and all these things. So that could be really great. So now practically, what can you do now? Which one of these can you enroll in? We have the one-on-one junior and senior research opportunities year-round, so you can enroll in those whenever you'd like. And we start more technically 5 times a year. We have start dates: June, September, January, March, etc. We do have the June cohort starting in about a month, so that would be a great way to start up if you're interested. And then the research interest exploration program starts every month, so that's very easy to start with as well. And the accelerated research practicum starts also every month. Yes, so that is my presentation for you. I'm not sure if anyone has questions. I guess I can answer that, but I know we're over time anyway.
No worries. All good. Thank you, Rachel. That was a very informative presentation. I didn't know about that case study about the MIT admit, so learned something new. Wonderful.
Very exciting. Yes, I'm glad.
No, we're actually great on time. We're only a little bit over. Thank you to everyone who's still here with us. I truly appreciate each and every one of you for listening in today. Hopefully, you learned a little bit about some student papers and projects that was helpful to you, or maybe to your child or your student. Join us again tomorrow for day 2, where we'll be focusing more on student projects. Tomorrow we'll be featuring 4 projects and only 1 paper. And very excitingly, we will be announcing the first batch of projects who've been awarded funding from our very own little venture fund. So very exciting stuff for tomorrow. Thank you for being here with us today. And if this applies to you, happy Mother's Day. I believe that's this weekend. Yes. Thank you, everybody. And yep, have a lovely Saturday. See you tomorrow.